Hey everyone, before we dive into this story, don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more content like this. Every first Sunday, our family gathers for dinner at my parents' suburban home, a tradition that feels more like a stage for subtle criticism than a warm get-together. I pull up in my unassuming Honda, steeling myself for the usual talks about money and life decisions. This chilly November night was no exception. The aroma of Mom's pot roast wafted through the dining room as we sat around Dad's polished mahogany table. My brother Kevin, his wife Jessica, and their 8-year-old son Tyler were there, along with my sister Amanda, her husband Mark, and their twin girls. As always, the conversation veered toward real estate, Dad's favorite way to highlight where I ranked in the family's ladder of achievement. Kevin's making another savvy investment, Dad declared, slicing into his roast with pride. Tell Emma about the duplex you're picking up, son. Kevin sat taller, basking in the attention. It's a solid property in Riverside, he said. We'll live in one unit, rent out the other. It's a smart way to build wealth while someone else covers the mortgage, unlike some who just burn cash on rent every month. Jessica shot me a sharp glance. I kept my eyes on my mashed potatoes, knowing from experience that arguing only drags out the ordeal. At 31, I was the family letdown, a software developer renting downtown while my siblings amassed suburban real estate portfolios. What they didn't know was that my downtown apartment was temporary corporate housing, while my newly bought penthouse was being renovated. What they really didn't know was that this penthouse, perched atop the city's most elite residential tower, cost $15.2 million. Emma still thinks renting is the way to go, Amanda said with a patronizing tone. Remember when she talked about flexibility? Like stability's a bad thing? Mark nodded sagely. Rent versus buy math doesn't lie. Every month renting is cash you'll never get back. Mom sighed, her voice heavy with disappointment. We've told her this for years. Some people just aren't built for the responsibility of owning a home. Emma's always been the artistic type. Practical money management isn't for everyone. They'd convinced themselves my 5-year-old software consulting business was barely keeping me afloat. In reality, my cybersecurity software had been snapped up by 3 major corporations, and my consulting fees made their mortgage payments look trivial. But I'd learned to stay quiet about my wins. Every time I shared a success, it was brushed off as a fluke or overshadowed by my siblings' more traditional triumphs. The market's still climbing, Dad went on, warming to his favorite topic. Kevin and Amanda get it. They're securing wealth for future generations. He paused, looking at me with a pitying shake of his head. Emma, you'll be renting forever, he said, chuckling at his own cleverness. The word stung, but I kept my cool. I'd heard this sermon too many times, always laced with condescension. Owning property is the bedrock of American success, Kevin added, leaning into his role as the accomplished son. Dad taught us that. Some people just don't get it. Tyler, quietly working on his homework in the corner, had stayed out of the adult chatter. He was a bright kid, always curious and never judgmental about my choices, unlike the rest of the family. Aunt Emma, he said suddenly, looking up from his worksheet. Can you help with my geography project? I need to find the city's tallest buildings. Grateful for the distraction, I smiled. Of course, buddy. He slid his tablet over, showing a website about architectural landmarks. I have to pick a building and explain what makes it special. Know any cool downtown spots? I glanced at his assignment details, building height, architectural features, and whether it's residential or commercial. Scrolling through the options, I hesitated, then pointed to a sleek glass tower. How about Meridian Tower? It's one of the newest luxury residential buildings. 72 floors, stunning harbor views. Tyler's face lit up. Perfect, he said, tapping the screen. It says the penthouse units cost, his eyes widened at the figure, $15 million. Who even has that kind of money? The table had moved on to Amanda's home renovation plans, but Tyler's outburst sliced through the chatter. What was that, honey? Jessica asked, leaning to see his tablet. Aunt Emma's building has apartments that cost $15 million, Tyler said, awestruck. Look at this penthouse. Floor-to-ceiling windows, private elevator. Kevin laughed it off. That's not for people like us, kid. That's for billionaires and celebrities. But Tyler kept reading, carefully sounding out the words. It says one penthouse was bought by Richardson Software Solutions, LLC. My stomach dropped. Richardson was my middle name, used for my business to keep things private. Tyler wouldn't connect the dots, but he was reading straight from a luxury real estate article. Richardson Software Solutions, Dad mused, unfamiliar with the name. Probably some tech firm with too much cash. Tyler kept going, absorbed in his research. It says the buyer wanted privacy, so no personal name was shared. But it lists the address, 425 Harborview Drive, Penthouse B. My heart stopped. That was my address, the one I'd kept secret until renovations were done and I could figure out how to tell the family. 425 Harborview Drive, Mom repeated slowly. Isn't that near your place, Emma? I managed to type. Yeah, same area. Amanda, distracted by her kitchen backsplash talk, mumbled, small world. But Tyler wasn't done. Look, there are photos of the penthouse, he said, turning the tablet toward everyone. The images showed my penthouse in its pre-renovation state. Towering ceilings, a wraparound terrace, a custom kitchen I'd soon upgrade to my specs. Wow, Jessica said, leaning closer. Imagine living there. What was that address again? 425 Harborview Drive, Penthouse B, Tyler read proudly. I watched, horrified, as Mom pulled out her phone. Let me look up this building, she said, curious about what $15 million buys these days. My mind raced for a way out. Maybe the article was old. Maybe another Richardson software existed. But as Mom's search loaded, her face shifted from curiosity to confusion to shock. That's impossible, she whispered, staring at her screen. What's impossible? Dad asked, sipping his wine. Mom's fork hit her plate with a clink, her hands shaking. According to property records, the owner of 425 Harborview Drive, Penthouse B, is listed as Emma Richardson. Silence crashed over the table. Every conversation stopped, every fork froze. All eyes turned to me, a mix of disbelief and confusion. That's not right, Kevin said, breaking the quiet. Emma doesn't own property. She's been renting that tiny downtown place forever. Must be another Emma Richardson, Jessica added quickly. It's a common name. But Mom kept scrolling, her face paling. The records say the purchase was 3 months ago. Buyer, Emma Marie Richardson, age 31. My middle name, my exact age. No escaping it now. Emma, Dad said, his voice stern, like when he'd caught me lying as a kid. What's your current address? I felt like I was standing on a cliff, about to leap into something that would change our family dynamic forever. It's complicated, I said weakly. What's complicated about an address? Amanda snapped. You either live somewhere or you don't. Tyler, unaware of the tension he'd sparked, kept exploring his tablet. There's more about the building, he said excitedly. It says the penthouse has smart home tech, designed by a local software company. The owner wanted custom security and convenience features. Smart home tech, custom security, exactly what I'd specified for the penthouse, details meant to stay private. Emma, Mom said, her voice trembling, please tell me you haven't done something reckless with money, trying to keep up appearances. The assumption that I'd be in financial trouble, that I couldn't possibly afford this legitimately, hurt more than their earlier jabs. I'm not in trouble, I said quietly. Then explain this, Dad demanded, pointing at Tyler's tablet. Explain how your name is tied to a $15 million property when you've told us you can barely afford rent. I never said I could barely afford rent, I countered. You all assumed that. Kevin cut in. We assumed because you live like you're scraping by, driving a 10-year-old Honda, shopping at discount stores, no fancy vacations. If you had that kind of money, why live like that? Because I learned from you, I said, my patience fraying. You taught me flashy spending was foolish. You taught me to build wealth quietly without showing off. But $15 million? Amanda's voice rose. Where did you get that kind of money? Your little consulting gig can't possibly make that much. Tyler looked up, sensing the tension but not its cause. Aunt Emma, the article says the buyer's company makes cybersecurity software for big corporations. Is that what you do? All eyes turned to me again. The moment I'd avoided for years, my carefully guarded privacy, was unraveling. Yes, I said simply. That's what I do. Mom was frantically searching her phone. Emma Richardson, cybersecurity, she muttered, typing. Richardson Software Solutions. Oh my God. Her face went white. What? Amanda demanded. What did you find? Forbes, Mom whispered. Emma's on the Forbes list of top cybersecurity entrepreneurs. It says her company was acquired by Microsoft for, her voice broke, $250 million. The room fell silent, the ticking clock deafening. $250 million? Kevin echoed, stunned. Mom kept reading, hands shaking. The acquisition was 8 months ago. Emma Richardson, founder and CEO, retained part of the company and still leads cybersecurity projects for Fortune 500 clients. Tyler piped up, excited. It says someone in your building designed its digital security system. Emma Richardson from Richardson Software Solutions. And Emma, is that you? I took a deep breath. Yes, Tyler, I said calmly. That's me. Dad stared, floored. So, while we were worrying about your finances, you were sitting on a $250 million empire? While you were lecturing me about money, I replied, I was building one of the top cybersecurity firms in the country. Amanda grabbed her phone. There are dozens of articles about you, Forbes, TechCrunch, Wall Street Journal. Emma, how did we not know? I tried to tell you, I said quietly. 3 years ago, when I mentioned a big client, Dad pivoted to Kevin's promotion. When I said I was growing my business, Mom brought up Amanda's new house. Every time I tried, you dismissed it. Kevin frowned at his phone. This says you testified before Congress. You never told us. I did, I said. I told you I was traveling to D.C. for work. You asked if I was finally getting a real job with benefits. The truth hit them hard. Years of their judgments and dismissals crumbled. Mom stared at Tyler's tablet. The penthouse, she murmured. You really bought a $15 million penthouse. I did, I said simply. My company has contracts worth hundreds of millions. I employ 47 people. We protect banks, hospitals, major corporations daily. Tyler grinned. Aunt Emma, it says you make security systems for hospitals and governments. That's so cool. You're like a superhero. His enthusiasm cut through the heavy silence. Dad's voice was quiet. If you were this successful, why didn't you tell us? Because every time I tried, I said, you minimized or ignored it. You were so convinced I was failing that it was easier to stay silent. Amanda read from her phone. This interview says your family didn't understand your career, and their lack of support drove you to succeed. Mom looked wounded. We weren't unsupportive. We just wanted you to be secure. You wanted me to follow your idea of security, I said. A steady job, a mortgage, a suburban life. That wasn't my path. Kevin's tone softened. My duplex cost $300,000. Jessica whispered. Her penthouse is 50 times that. Tyler smiled. Aunt Emma, can I visit your place? It says the view's amazing. Of course, I said warmly. Once renovations are done, you can check it out. Renovations? Mom asked faintly. Smart home systems, kitchen upgrades, new floors, I said. I'm making it my forever home. The irony lingered. They'd preached about buying property while I'd done it on a grander scale. Dinner ended awkwardly, with tentative questions and quiet apologies, but they still didn't fully get it. I should head home, I said. I have a client call with Tokyo tonight. Tokyo? Dad repeated. Yeah, I said. A $70 million contract if we seal it. Tyler hugged me goodbye, still thrilled. The adults said they wanted a fresh start. Driving home in my old Honda, I wondered if they'd really change. They knew my success now. But did they understand why I'd kept it hidden? 3 weeks later, I hosted dinner at my finished penthouse. Tyler loved the smart lighting. Kevin and Amanda were subdued, still processing. The conversation was polite, but distant. Funny, I said, gazing at the city lights. If Tyler hadn't chosen Meridian Tower for his project, you might never have known. Dad asked softly, would you have told us eventually? I'm not sure, I admitted. Keeping things private felt safer. Tyler came over with his tablet. Aunt Emma, this says your company's making software for hospitals. Will it keep patient data safe? Yes, I smiled. That's exactly what it does. He nodded, serious. That's super important. As the night ended, I realized his school project had finally made my family see me. Maybe it would bring us closer. Maybe not. But for the first time, they knew who I really was. Sometimes, a child's homework is the spark everyone needs to face the truth.